Oh, there we go. So again, we have to handle each of those two groups individually. Okay, that's what we have to handle now. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's handle the first group. Now, hopefully you can see what the GCF is for this, right? That's what we have to factor out. Well, the smallest exponent of x is just 1. I mean, hopefully you can see that because we have x to the 1 here and x squared. Now, if you look at 6 and 30, right? 6 is a factor of 30. And because 6 is a factor of 30, 6 has to be the greatest common factor of 6 and 30. Now, if that doesn't make sense, let me do this then. Where is it? No, it's not there. All right, never mind. I thought it would be, actually, no, I guess that's all right. I thought I had the factors of 6 listed, but I don't. That's okay. All right, but basically what I'm trying to say is that you get your B happens to be 6. So the greatest common factor of 6 and 30 is just 6 itself. And because of that, we can get the GCF of this is just 6 times x. Right? Again, m is the smallest exponent of x, which is 1 in this case. B is the greatest common factor of the coefficients. So in this case, we get 6. Okay, that's great. So remember, once you get the GCF, what do? You factor it out. And that's what we do. And that's what I'm doing here. Again, same story, right? Put it out in front, you divide, right? When you divide into each term, okay? And divide this quotient, what happens? Well, the 6's cancel. You're left with x, right? Because you subtract the exponents. For the second one, the x's cancel. 30 over 6 is 5. Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, if you were to look at negative x plus 5, hopefully you can see right away that the GCF of this is 1, right? Again, we have a non-zero constant term. So our m is 0. And not only that, the coefficient here is -1, right? Well, the only factor of -1 is 1. So the only common factor among the coefficient and the constant term, among the numbers, is just 1 itself. So the only factor among the coefficient and the constant term is 1. So B has to be 1. In other words, from here, we get a GCF is just 1. Nothing too fancy. But are we still going to have to factor something out? Well, yeah, we do. Now you might be thinking, well, how do I know that? Well, notice that the second and fourth term here have different signs. This is a negative. The other one is positive. So from the second group, we have to factor out a negative. Now, since in this case the GCF is 1, we're only going to factor out -1. So let me say it again. Since this is fun, I guess. Since the GCF of this thing is 1, right? However, since in the original polynomial, as I said, let me go back actually, the second and fourth term have negatives, they're opposite in sign. We have to factor out a negative at the very least. So in this case, we can only factor out -1. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. So again, this is just saying what I said already. And this is us factoring out -1. you might be able to, hopefully you can see why we do. It's mostly so that if you look in the polynomial, the two groups that we formed, they have a common factor now of x minus 5. This is actually why we have to do this. It's so that in these two groups here, right, we have a common factor, namely what's in parentheses. In this case, that common factor is x minus 5. Okay. What do we do next? We factor out this common factor, right? And that's what I'm doing here. We're going to factor out this common factor, right? And when you factor it out, what do? You divide. And when you divide, what's actually happening in the background, I mean, on an exam or something, you could skip the next step, if you want to. But really, again, what's happening is this. You're actually dividing into each term, and hopefully you can see there's some cancellation, right? Namely, let me show it. This cancels with this. So from the first one here, you're only going to get 6x. Here, these are going to cancel, and you'll have minus 1. Something cancels with itself, you get 1. And that's what we get. Yeah. So, altogether, okay, then, what we get is this. But if you remember, we had to factor something out first, right? We had to factor out 5x, and that's what happens down here. So again, this was from the first GCF factor, so to say. And from here to here, we just factored out as above. Okay, that's fun. That's fun. Okay. Let me get to the eraser. And again, these notes will be posted on, on Blackboard after lecture. Let me just, okay, so what I think it'd be good for everyone to try now, even for a few minutes, is an example, which is this one. Now, before I do that, though, I just want to pause the recording.